Welcome back to the main stage here at Autosport International. Day 1 of 4, as we adjust our chairs to get the right height so we don't spin around and that sort of thing. A double host for this interview. Stuart is joining me here on the main stage because we have two young drivers that I'm sure over the ensuing years you will hear plenty from. They were two drivers that were selected from a huge pool of young talent to be contesting the Aston Martin Autosport BRDC Young Driver of the Year last year. They did the shootout at Silverstone, which is quite an event, and we'll find out about that. One of them won the title, and one of them came very close indeed. I'm delighted to welcome Ollie Bearman at the far end and Aston Martin Autosport BRDC Young Driver of the Year, Luke Browning. Luke, first of all, yeah, quite right too. So you should be applauding everybody.
They're so excited they've actually moved off the red and stepped into the black.
They're allowed into the black.
They've taken the risk of falling into the pool of piranhas that lies under there, which I activate with this button.
I didn't know how this was going to work with you, but I like it already. Luke, tell me a little bit about what that moment feels like at the Autosport Awards. You're at the Grosvenor House Hotel in Park Lane in London, and you're waiting to find out if it's your name that's going to be announced. Tell me about that moment.
Yeah, well, to say the least, the heart was racing. I think I can probably speak for both of us that that was probably the most nervous night of my life. But yeah, no, just an incredibly enjoyable experience. You know, just a massive thank you to Autosport for putting it on. And it's something that gives young drivers a stage for the future. And yeah, I have to say it's quite possibly changed my life, the award. The phone rings after that, so.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Has your life changed? The phone was ringing the following day. Presumably that night it was ringing, was it?
Quite possibly, yeah. I can't quite confirm nor deny what's going on, but you know what it's like when it gets to this stage of the season. But yeah, no, it's looking positive for the future, and yeah, it's done a pretty quick 180 since, yeah, I mean, even coming off the back of winning the GB3 Championship this year with High Tech. I think the award has really just put it on a new level for me to really be able to reach my dreams.
For you guys, can I ask a question? Sorry, grammarians will be rejecting this. May I ask a question about the judging process? Because obviously my colleague Kevin Turner is on the judging panel. There are lots of other people, Derek Warwick, that sort of thing. Is it because you're all in competition with one another as well as trying to improve your craft? Is it kind of like being on The Apprentice or something and going up before Derek Warwick, kind of a little bit like being up before Lord Sugar?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think Derek will vouch that he's trying to put the pressure on. You know, everything it was so well organised, so neatly put together, that there was just enough time to start thinking before a brand new one-lap new tyre run that, ooh, don't make a mistake in this one. And, you know, we're all sat there together. It's a very high-pressure environment, but motorsport's a high-pressure environment. So, yeah, you get used to it after doing so many years, but I think the general thing, I think both me and Ollie will say, is we might not have got the opportunity to drive them cars, as he very well said backstage, if it weren't for that. And they are very different driving styles, so having to adapt to that, try and overcome new challenges, both wet and dry throughout the 2 days. It was an incredible challenge, and you know, I think me and Ollie were split by nothing. So yeah, it's looking bright, hopefully.
Well, let's go to Ollie. Sorry, I have to ask you the same question. But this one isn't tinged with as many smiles as when I asked Luke. Coping with the disappointment of it not being your name, that's a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, it was a bit disappointing, but I felt like I left it all out on the track. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, but I'm happy with what I did, and Luke is a worthy winner.
Oh, well, that's a very sporting way of dealing with it, yeah.
I love it at the Oscars where, you know, you have to be careful when they read out the winner, that if you're one of the nominees and you haven't won, you know that the cameras aren't going to be on you, so you can't go.
No, I know, and very often you do get a little look of it. It's bound to be disappointing, isn't it? But let's go to the process, Ollie, if you would, and go back to that opportunity to drive the cars and be judged, if you like, by the great and the good of motorsport from many, many years.
Yeah, so of course I'm on the single-seater ladder. I wouldn't have driven a GT car or an LMP3 car in my career otherwise, so it's nice to try some other stuff. pretty different driving
What did you
style.
think of them?
They're pretty heavy compared to what I'm used to, but it's still really fun to drive. You know, they've both got a lot of power, and yeah, it's just different. But it's fun. It's different to what I'm used to, so and it's also could maybe open doors up to the future. You know, single seaters isn't forever, and you know, a second option could be either of those two cars.
You're both still really young. I mean, the clue's in the title, isn't it? The Young Driver of the Year award. And you are, Ollie, seemingly still looking into the future, potentially beyond a single-seater career.
Yeah, I mean, of course, my main focus is F2 this year. So yeah, that's number one. But yeah, you know, you have to be realistic. It's not easy to get to F1. Of course, that's my goal, and I'm fully focused on that. But you have to make a career in motorsport otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, the Formula 2 thing is interesting, isn't it? Because you're part of the Ferrari Driver Academy setup, aren't you? We'll come back to how well you're learning Italian later, because I believe you've taken an apartment in Maranello of all places. Nice.
Good move.
Yeah, nice. You know,
Michael Schumacher learnt to speak fluent Italian in the run-up to starting with Ferrari, and that was seen to be a major reason why he instantly integrated.
Better than I think.
Well, you know, they didn't have stuff like Babel fish or whatever in those sort of days. The question is, how does the Ferrari Driver Academy work? You know, do you have people who give you benchmarks for progress? Is it kind of like the Red Bull thing where you've got Helmut Marko looking over your shoulder all the time going, "You are not fast enough in Sector 3 on that lap"?
Yeah, I think it's a bit less severe than that, but you know, they're still looking from afar maybe. You know, it's a bit of pressure that, you know, the whole F1 team is probably watching the F3 races, and hopefully this year the F2 races. But you know, they set out goals at the start of the year. We you know, kind of aim for them, and yeah, it's pretty clear. It's high pressure, but not I don't think super high pressure. It's a healthy environment, and it's helping me to thrive and get on well.
Do you see it as a kind of a linear step up? Because obviously F4 to F3 is quite a sort of a step, and then to F2 are they linear, or are there sort of big things to get used to, especially since F2 theoretically gets you more used to the Pirelli tyres and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I think the step from F4 to F3 is a pretty big one. For sure bigger than F3 to F2. Normally people go to Formula Regional before they go to F3. So I took a bit of a risk there for sure. I think from F3 to F2, it's another big step. You have to be honest about that, but it's definitely less so than what I did in F4 to F3. So yeah, it will be a challenge for sure, no doubt about that. The standard is very high this year, but I'm really relishing it. I'm really looking forward to get going.
I find it absolutely fascinating that the team that work out which drivers are going to be doing the shootout for the Young Driver Award, this prestigious award that we give out every year, have got eyes all over the world, because one of your protagonists was Louis Foster. He's been racing over in the US. That didn't preclude him from being involved. Jamie Chadwick was the fourth member competing in W Series this year. So the eyes are all around the world, and that's quite right, because Ollie, your route to this point has been very different to Luke's, which has been very much homegrown, hasn't it, Luke?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, my route's been pretty interesting, to say the least. I hopped into junior saloon cars in 2016, 14, 15 years old. So I didn't quite hop into F4 as my first year. But it's just gradually got more and more serious. I've sort of had more of a grassroots background. It started off with as I actually think a couple of people out there know, just with a bunch of my dad's mates. We didn't necessarily start taking it seriously until maybe 2019. It's the same through karting. We just sort of did grassroots stuff. But it really does go to show that if you have the right opportunities and you're in front of the right people, that it is possible to make it to the top of the sport, especially at a junior level.
So you were doing it for fun initially?
Yeah, I had sort of no goals to make it as a necessarily a professional racing driver to start off with, especially in karting.
So what changed it? Was it because you were good?
Well, you know, you enjoy stuff when you're good at it, and when you start beating people consecutively, you think, oh, you know, maybe I'm not too bad at this. Maybe I should start taking this a little bit more seriously. I'm not even sure if my parents believed it to start off with, But yeah, I mean, luckily we got the right point in the right direction. Especially, I think I'd say this is probably where it turned around, was the Autosport show back in, wow, I think it might have been 2015. It was the first year that the MSA Formula came out, and I remember the stand over there. For anyone that was there at the time, it was this sort of blue Ford that came out, and I remember looking at that car going, I would just give anything. I give my right arm to get in that car right now. And I mean, fast forward 5 years' time, and I won the championship in it. So it was something for me that this show is something that you look at and you see everything from different disciplines at the top of the sport, and you know, people look at this as goals to achieve in the future, and it is possible. This is the showcase for it.
He's very on brand with Autosport, isn't he? We like that.
You can come back.
Yes, exactly.
You know, speaking of coming back, obviously it's 3 years since we all sort of last sat here and that sort of thing. The pandemic has presented all sorts of challenges for people of all sorts of ages, particularly I think for young people with education, but also building careers. Now, for you guys, pick whoever answers first between you. What particular challenges did the pandemic serve up to you in terms of continuity of your career, finding sponsors, all that sort of thing? You know, first there's no racing, then there's a little bit of racing behind closed doors, that sort of thing.
I think for me, actually, I'm one of the few people that I would say benefited actually from the pandemic. I know it sounds a bit heartless, but actually because of the way it worked out, the German F4 season in 2020 started after my birthday, after I turned 15. So actually I managed to do the whole season because of that.
Because it was delayed by a few months.
Exactly. So
wow.
Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do the entire championship. To be honest, looking back, we definitely weren't prepared enough for that season. I'd done about 4 days in the car, maybe, before I actually did my first race start. But no, I wouldn't have had it any other way. I'm really happy that I managed to do a full season, and then that was only 3 years ago now, so it's gone pretty quickly since then.
Isn't that interesting? So we could write a whole chapter about this, the pandemic stories, because already today on the Autosport main stage we've got stories about how actually what happened during the pandemic era turned round and became quite a positive for championships, for regulations, for all sorts of different things. It's interesting. Ollie, can I just ask you, so we've heard from Luke that the career started out as having fun, and then all of a sudden, actually, I could be quite good at this. This might lead somewhere. Was that the plan for you or not?
Yeah, so I think we all start for the same reason, that it's an adrenaline rush. It's good fun. I started in cadet karting at my local circuits, Buckmore, Rye House, Bayford. They're pretty much the three tracks down south where you've heard a lot of stories. Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton, people like that have started. So yeah, we used to go every Wednesday and Saturday, bring our little kart down there. Until one time I had a really big crash. That was almost career-ending. So not from injury, but from my mum. She wasn't so happy after that.
Right. Yeah.
But
they're more serious than injuries.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably worse. But no, after that, I started to do well at the back end of my cadet karting in like 2015, something like that. I moved into like junior karting. I did a couple races abroad in Europe, and yeah, it started to get quite serious. First F4 tests, and then first F4 race not too long after. Time's flown by since then, and now I'm here. I would say it started to get serious, of course, when I started F4, but when I won the F4 championships at the end of 2021 and signed to Ferrari, that was when I kind of thought, now it's feasible.
It's an incredible trajectory that both of you are on in your careers. Fascinating to find out a little bit about it. Well done to both of you for getting to the Final Four last year in the Aston Martin Autosport BRDC Young Drivers. Good luck this year. We know what you're doing. We don't know what you're doing, but we'll take you backstage and tickle you and might find out. But well done to the both of you, to Luke Browning and to Ollie Bearman.